Sony now have 7 full-frame 50mm lenses for the E-mount camera system if you include the 55mm 1.8. Sony got in touch with me a little while ago and told me that they had a little white box for me. What that usually means is that I have to go and pick an item up, sign an NDA before I can open it and see what it is. To my surprise, it was the 50mm 1.4 G Master. Now, I haven't really been following the rumors, but turns out it's a thing, and it caught me by surprise a little bit. I feel like there's a couple of other lenses that needed to be updated first, like the 24mm 1.4, or even the 85mm 1.4 G Master, which I believe was the first Sony G Master lens to ever come out, and definitely needs an update. But I'm not going to dwell on that, I just had to touch on it, and today we're going to go over the 50mm 1.4 G Master. I shot it at a wedding, I've done an engagement shoot. I'm going to show you guys a bunch of photos and give you my thoughts on it. If you want to jump to different sections, check the timestamps in the description. Before we jump into this review, Sony did not pay me for this, I'm not sponsored, I don't get to keep the lens, they don't get to see this review before it goes out, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. The only sponsor of this channel is myself, and it's going to stay like that. If you want to check out my presets, there's a link in the description. They work really well, they're a good, solid, professional Lightroom preset if you want to get something to speed up your workflow and get some nice tones out of your images. All the images you're going to see today were edited with the new V3 preset pack, and no other adjustments other than white balance and exposure, and possibly in some photos highlights and shadows, otherwise they weren't touched. And all the images were taken with the Sony A7IV. The very first question I had for Sony once I picked this lens up was how much is it going to be? Because we already have the 50mm 1.2 G Master, and if it's not that much cheaper, I feel like people are just going to go for the 1.2. However, that leads me on to the build quality, because the 50mm 1.4 is definitely noticeably lighter and smaller than the 51.2. The 51.2 though isn't that big that I feel like it's going to be a problem for anybody, so it really depends on your personal preference, and also the price is going to vary wildly from what I've seen around the world. Here in New Zealand right now, and the 50mm 1.2 has been out for a while, you need to remember it's come down in price a little bit. You can pick one up now from my friends at Auckland Camera Centre, for example, for about $3,400, and the 50mm 1.4 is supposedly going to be around $3,000 or just under $3,000. That's probably going to drop, I reckon, to about $2,800. So either way, you're going to save around 500 New Zealand dollars, which is nothing to laugh at, but it's still not that much of a gap in my opinion. Carrying on from that, build quality, it's obviously really well made. It's the same as any other G Master lens. It's fully weather sealed, it has a 67mm filter thread, and the same function buttons that the 50mm 1.2 has. Now I am going to obviously talk about the 1.2 G Master in this review, but I'm going to make a separate video comparing them head to head and doing proper focus, speed tests, and like sharpness tests and all that kind of boring stuff that the internet cares about. But this review I'm mostly just focusing on the 51.4 as a standalone lens. So aside from it being quite a bit lighter and smaller than the 51.2, it focuses really, really well. It's really smooth in terms of video focus, and the photo focus is pretty much just as snappy in my experience as the 50mm 1.2. So it's a really quick lens, it's completely silent, and you're not going to have any issues at all with focus. I feel like focus is one of those things we just don't really need to talk about anymore. If you're buying a modern mirrorless lens, it's going to have good autofocus. Moving on to image quality, this one was a standout for me. It's really fantastic. It's just super sharp, sharper than you'll ever need in a lens. The chromatic aberration is almost non-existent. I really struggled to find a scene where I could get any chromatic aberration to come out of the lens, and the background is just really smooth and creamy. And same as any other G Master lens, it's really contrasty and punchy. The color balance is quite neutral, so it's not like warmer than it should be or anything. It's accurate. If you're shooting in broad day sunlight and you're at about 5500 Kelvin, it's accurate. It's not too warm. Moving on, the 51.4 is very color accurate, really nice and contrasty, and it just looks fantastic. Obviously these have been edited, but I will put some of them with the before and after photo so you can see for yourself how they look straight out of the camera. So I guess coming down to it, it's really going to be your preference and whether you want to spend an extra $400, $500, $600 depending on the final pricing that comes out. For me, I'm still on the 55mm 1.8. And I really have been thinking about upgrading it over the years, but I've had it for such a long time and I've never felt like I've needed it. However, after using the 51.4 at this latest wedding that you've seen the images for, it did make me feel like I want to upgrade. I think if I was going to spend that much money, I would personally probably just go for the 50mm 1.2, but you have to bear in mind as well, I'm a working professional. I do weddings full time. This isn't like a hobby for me. So, you know, I may as well just spend the extra few $100s and get the 50mm 1.2. For me, because the weight isn't really an issue, you know, the 50mm, like I said, it's not a huge lens. A lot of people are using the Sigma 35 1.2, and that's a lot bigger. However, let me put this in a different way for you guys. If the 50mm 1.4 G Master came out first, I definitely wouldn't feel like I needed to sell it and buy the 50mm 1.2. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this one, guys. Like I said in the start of this review, I would have preferred it if Sony had updated like the 85. I'd really like a new 85 G Master or a 24mm G Master. Not that they're bad lenses, but I just wasn't expecting this one. You guys let me know in the comments what you want to see for yourself. But the final thought on this lens, it's the 50mm 1.4 is great. I can't complain about it at all. And I think most people are probably going to go for the 1.4 and just save the extra money. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you got up to this point, I had to thank you again. It's been really great kicking off this YouTube channel again. I'm about to kick off our podcast as well, so keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video real soon.